Well, we had a little rain last night. Not a lot, but enough to slow me down. So I'm taking this time to rebuild the mower sickle. A kind of a spare one, so I have my hand. But there's a couple of things I was going to show you. Now, to get these old sections off, I have known people to take a grinder and grind off every rivet. It's really not necessary. A lot quicker is to just use an anvil or anything with a square edge. You can put the bar right on it and just whack it. Because these rivets are very soft material. They have to be to actually function as a rivet. Now these sections are hard. So whacking it, you can shear them right off. Then you can just take a punch and knock out that end of the rivet. Or an old nail. But now, like I say, the rivets themselves are fairly soft material. And they have to be, because a rivet isn't designed to fit very tight. It's actually a fairly loose fit in there. Then as you pound it in, it expands. And now this is one of them cases again where things that you pick up along the way in your life always come in handy later. Because I spent a whole summer custom combining with a crew that we went down to Oklahoma and then worked our way back up. And of course, you replaced a lot of sections along the way. And you can do it right in the machine even. But then, like instead of having an anvil, you use a big hammer underneath, a small hammer on top, and you can pound that flat. You know, if you hit a rock or something, you have to replace a section. And then the actual riveting thing, like I say, I used to work on a Harley shop, and you'd be amazed how much that stuff is riveted on, you know, like the sprockets and disc brake or the brake lining, stuff like that, you know. There's a lot of riveting involved in Harleys. That's, you know, old technology that they used up until the 80s. But another thing I was going to mention, in riveting, you know, like I say, the rivets are small, then they expand to fill the space, and then they compress down. A thing people have a problem with when they're riveting, a lot of times, they'll tend to, instead of striking straight down, they'll tend to go like this at a bit of an angle, and you'll start, instead of compressing the rivet, you start bending the rivet. It takes a little practice to get it to rivet flat, but if you have that problem, if you find yourself, like I said, kind of drawing it toward you, all you have to do is turn the whole thing around and come at it from the other way, and you will actually, your drawing will bring it back. I like riveting. You know, it's a good, solid way of holding something together. But that is a case of, you know, you pick up stuff in jobs that you have done before that later comes in to be handy. So, don't be hung up on working one job and working it forever. Do an assortment of things. even if only for a short period of time, the things that you learn will come in handy later. It rounds you out. You know, there are all kinds of pneumatic deals for doing this sort of job. And I can see if you're working on a large scale, okay, it would make sense. But it's one of them cases again where I can hear it, I can feel it, I know when it's tight, you know, I know where I'm at if I'm doing it by hand. Doing it by machine, you're trusting the machine. They make a kind of a punch that goes over the top that will make them appear more rounded. Of course, I think these were actually factory done ones. But you can kind of see like here where there's a little lip here. It's from, I'm sure that was a punch done with a pneumatic hammer. But they do make a screw type one too. These are a little harder when you get up to the end here. You know, because you're dealing with a piece here that you don't want to break, though you can shear these off. Though I tend to grind these just to be on the safe side and then punch them out. But that's where it takes a much longer rivet. But there's a lot of strain on them, so you got to make sure and get them tight. But good to have one spare, you know, a new one built. And like I say, it isn't that hard to do. Yeah, it's a good thing to do on a rainy day. But as long as you got a square edge that you can get that on, shear them right off. Oh, it helps too. I'm using a woodworking stand that's an adjustable height. Because when you get a long thing strung out here, you got to have something to counterbalance. And if you'd have to find the right stump that works. You know, and the sad thing is these aren't actually in that bad a shape. And I will throw them in a bucket for backups. But they're really rusty. And it's always nice to have a nice sickle. You can see they're wore down quite a little. But they still do have life in them. And these are the under-serrated. And extra heavy duty. Really, just that they're really hard. But then when you sharpen them, you know, you can kind of see there's a line that kind of limits where you can sharpen them. But that puts that, you know, when you sharpen the top, it puts that sharpness on the serrations again. And when you run out of serrations, you got to give her up. But they work. But it's good to have experience from various jobs, is what I was going to say. You know, like, because now this is an easy thing for me to do. I don't have to bring a sickle in and have somebody else rebuild it. I can do it myself in my spare times on a wet morning.